Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As I've previously mentioned, this is a phenomenon where Shia scholarship appeal to Sunni sources to try to prove their hateful narrative and heresy, where in best case scenario they appeal to our weak sources and twist them to suit their narrative. What Mahdi al-Mudarrisi does, however, is simply make things up. He lies to his congregation and YouTube followers. But before we get to that, let's have a quick recap of Netflix's season 1 of The Broken Rib.
We're shocked to see the actions of Umar, and even more shocked to hear the ultimatum and the threats that were coming out of his mouth. I don't care. Whoever's in the house, I will burn it down if they do not come out.
If Ali does not come out now, I will set this house on fire upon whoever is in it.
فدفع عمر الباب برجله وأبواب للبيوت ما كانت موجودة أعزائي، وإنما رسول الله أمر بأن يضعوا ماذا؟ الستائر مولانا. ليش؟ لأنه هؤلاء كانوا يمرون باب الحوش مولانا يشوفون كل شيء داخل البيت. أنا بودي أن تروحون تقرأون الروايات، لتضحكون روحوا اقرأوا أعزائي.
Yes, you enter by burning down the door.
Where is Ali?
40 men attack Fatimah. One hitting her with the sheath of the sword. The other beating her with the end of the spear. Another slapping her across the face. She began bleeding. My mother was bleeding.
She was beaten before the eyes of Amir al-Mu'mineen in the middle of the street in broad daylight, because they beat Fatimah al-Zahra with the sheaths of their swords, with their whips, while Ali ibn Abi Talib was watching all of this.
هذه ليست قصة أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، هذه قصة علي بابا والأربعين حرامي.
Some Oscar-worthy acting there from Mudarrisi. Moving on, let's look at one of Mudarrisi's more preposterous lies relating to the fable of the broken rib.
Ibn Taymiyyah, in his book, he begins to slander the Shia and to attack them. And then he says, for instance, the things they claim happened after the Prophet in terms of killing Fatimah al-Zahra, in terms of aborting her pregnancy and killing her fetus, and all these things are embellishments, they are exaggerations, they are lies, they are concoctions, a figment of their imaginations, and so on and so forth. Eventually he concedes. Listen to this. He says, وَغَايَةُ مَا يُقَالُ, the most that we can say. In other words, this is the minimum that he is conceding to. He says this actually happened. He says this actually happened. He says this actually happened. وَغَايَةُ مَا يُقَالُ أَنَّ أَبَا بَكْرٍ كَبَسَ عَلَى دَارِ عَلِيٍّ وَفَاطِمَةٍ. What we can concede to is that Abu Bakr ambushed the house of Fatima and Ali. Why? He goes on to explain. Subhanallah. He says that the Khalifa has a right to ambush a personal property when he suspects that there is public funds that are being held inside of that property. And as the Khalifa, he has the right to take back, to confiscate those public funds. And he suspected that in the house of Ali and Fatima, there was money that did not belong to them. Rather, it belonged to the public treasury. So he ambushed the house, and then he doesn't even elaborate further, which leaves the reader in suspicion that in fact Abu Bakr was justified in his ambush against the house of Fatimah al-Zahra and Ali ibn Abi Talib.
As you've just heard, Madarisi claims that Ibn Taymiyyah accepted or conceded that Abu Bakr radiallahu anh attacked the house of Fatima. Now this tragic fable was concocted by the Shia narrators to create hatred for the Sahaba. Interestingly, it's even doubted amongst Shia scholarship.
ونحن نقرأ أن الشيخ المفيد رحمه الله لم يؤكد ذلك في كتبه، وهكذا نجد أن من علمائنا المتأخرين السيد محسن الأمين والشيخ محمد حسين كاشف الغطاء والسيد هاشم معروف وكثير من العلماء الذين لم يؤكدوا هذه الحادثة. ونحن عندما درسنا هذه المسألة على مستوى الوثاقة في الرواية وعلى مستوى المضمون الرواية، رأينا أن هناك قلقا كأنه فيما ينقله المؤرخون، ولذلك كان موقفنا أننا نشكك في الموضوع.
كتاب له اسمه معرفة الحديث، العلامة البهبودي. هذا الرجل هناك في معرفة الحديث أعزائي في الصفحة عنده في آخر الكتاب نموذج الموضوعات على الثقات. يقول هناك مجموعة من الكتب هذه من الموضوعات، من الأكاذيب، من الترهات، من الأساطير، ولكن وضعت باسم من؟ باسم الثقات. من هذه الكتب أعزائي كتاب سليم بن قيس الهلالي، والكتاب موضوع لا مرية فيه، واقرأوه. بس بعض العوام بيني وبين الله اللي الآن، ولهذا مثل السيد الخوئي بيني وبين الله بعد كل محاولاته في نهاية المطاف انتهى إلى أن الكتاب يوجد له سند صحيح أو لا يوجد له سند صحيح. لا يوجد له سند صحيح. والكتاب موضوع لا مرية فيه، وعلى ذلك علامات. يقول وهذا الكتاب فيه من الأعاجيب والأكاذيب والترهات إلى ما شاء الله.
مهم مليح إذا هجموا على الزهراء. شو دور الإمام علي؟ الإمام علي جبان؟ أنتوا كلكم متزوجين. إذا فرضنا أنه واحد بده يجي يهجم على زوجتك، بده يقتلها أو بده يعتدي عليها، تقعد تقول لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم أو تدافع عنها؟ إذا ما دافعت عن زوجتك شو بيقولوا الناس عنك؟ هذا واحد. اثنين، لم يكن علي وحده في البيت، كان هناك جماعة من بني هاشم، حتى قيل أنه زبير ابن عمة الإمام علي خرج مسلطا سيفه إلى الخارج، ما كانوا داخلين للداخل. هولهم أيضا يتركون الزهراء، هذا بيكسر لها ضلعها وهذا ينقصها بالسيف وهذا ما يدخل البسمار بصدرها، مثل ما بيقولوا بسمار هيك مزنجر، ما بعرف هذا معقول؟ هذا فكروا شو بيقولوا؟ أنه النبي أوصاه يعني شو معنى النبي وصى؟ قال له يا علي قبل ما يموت إذا يريد يقتلون بنتي حرام عليك تدافع عنها. في واحد يعقل عنده عقل يتصور هالشيء؟
We have multiple videos on the channel where we refute this Bollywood-like allegory and have a book on our website 12ashia.net that is free to download and is a critical analysis of the earliest Shiite historical source of this fable. I've left a link in the description box. Madarasi has such little respect for his congregation that he simply lies to them and makes it seem as if one of the greatest scholars of Ahlul Sunnah, Ibn Taymiyyah, accepts this narrative that Abu Bakr attacked the house of Fatimah.
Deceiving, conniving individual.
He does this with the intention of tricking his congregation into thinking that this story has credibility. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah wrote Minhaj al-Sunnah in response to a 12 Shia scholar called Al-Hilli and his many arguments. Here, Al-Hilli presents a narration which he claims supports the fact that Abu Bakr accepted that he attacked the house of Fatima and regretted it. So let's have a look at what Ibn Taymiyyah actually had to say. What he said was, and I quote, the Rafidi stated, Ibn Taymiyyah is saying that Al-Hilli said, Abu Bakr said while terminally ill, I wish I had left the house of Fatima unsearched, and I wish while we are in the shade of Banu Sa'ida that I gave my pledge of allegiance to one of the men, so that he becomes the leader and I become his advisor. This showed that he has attacked the house of Fatima while Ali, Zubair and other people are holding a meeting. We reply, this is Ibn Taymiyyah saying what his reply is, that rebuke or disparagement is not acceptable until the statement is confirmed with an authentic chain of narration, and it clearly shows a blameworthy action. If one of these conditions is not fulfilled, the rebuke is negated. So how about if both conditions are unfulfilled? As you can see, Ibn Taymiyyah clearly dismisses this narration. He goes on to say, we are absolutely certain that he never intended to harm Ali or Zubair in any way. Rather, he never even harmed Sa'ad bin Ubadah, the person who refused to give the pledge of allegiance to him, meaning Abu Bakr, right from the beginning up until the end. Now here is the part that Madarasi is being extra deceptive. Ibn Taymiyyah goes on to say, the most that some people say. When he says the most that some people say, or the most that could be said, it's in the context of responding to the argument of Al-Hilli. He, Ibn Taymiyyah, has already dismissed the narration, but here he's saying even if we were to accept it, and he doesn't, this is the most that can be said in a hypothetical situation where the narration is accepted. The most that some people say is that he searched the house to see if there is anything belonging to the state treasury, which shall be distributed and given to those who deserved them. He later on saw that if he had left those properties with them, it is permissible, for they deserve to be given what is acquired of war booties. So Ibn Taymiyyah is saying, if we are to accept Al-Hilli's argument, and we aren't, he doesn't accept it, but he's saying if we are to accept it, all it's showing is Abu Bakr has entered the house of Fatima to collect some wealth to distribute to the people, or to give it to those who deserved it. Then he realized, had he not gone into the house to get Allah's wealth to distribute to the people, that would have been better, because it's permissible to give them wealth of war booty. But then Ibn Taymiyyah goes on to say that this event is not authentic, and neither are all the other fabricated tales that the Shias say, such as Abu Bakr kicked the stomach of Fatima. It's clear that Ibn Taymiyyah rejected this report, but only answered to those who thought there is some truth in it. So it's not his view, as Madarasi deceptively tries to convey to his gullible audience.
It's much easier to deceive the audience. So be careful, brothers and sisters. Next time you're listening to someone, this is a common technique that's used by all manner of conniving individuals.
Accepting something for the sake of the argument doesn't mean you accept it. All it's doing is finding the flaws in the opponent's argumentation. Now, Madarasi has three options. Either he admits he lacks the intelligence to understand the context of the narration, and he may be excused because of all the excessive self-head beating. Or option two, Madarasi accepts that he lied again for the umpteenth time.
But you have to be open to the truth. And we don't just make claims. This is something of a habit that I've made myself, and most of the other programs that you see on the Ahlul Bayt TV channel are exactly like that. We don't just make unsubstantiated claims like that. We back them up with facts. And if you want to challenge those facts, feel free to write in or to call in or to challenge us.
Or Mudarrisi shows us option 3, where Ibn Taymiyyah accepted that Abu Bakr attacked the house of Fatima. Now, of course, you can't do that, Mehdi, but what you can show us is what Ibn Taymiyyah actually said about the event, and what he actually said about people like yourself. In the same section, Ibn Taymiyyah goes on to say, certainly, Abu Bakr has never attempted to harm them by the consensus of the people of religion and knowledge. The ignorant liars transmit this kind of story, and it is to be believed by the fools of the world, who say, the companions have demolished the house of Fatima, hit her stomach, and caused her to abort her pregnancy. All these are false claims and lies of slanderers by the consensus of scholars, and they are only accepted and broadcasted by those who are of the species of animals. As you've just heard, Mehdi, Ibn Taymiyyah said about people like yourself, Mehdi, you seriously need to start behaving yourself, and your congregation deserves an apology for all your deception.
Look, I'm sorry. I am truly, sincerely sorry. I apologize for my behavior, and I will never do it again.
هذه تقية